Steve Ballmer at some point realized, oh my God, my smart plan is also a stupid plan because the guy I trusted to deceive the NBA is also scamming me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Please like the video and subscribe. Our target is only 1,000 likes. So fewer people are watching the NBA than in previous years. Rating for NBA games on ABC, ESPN, TNT, and NBA TV are down 25%. That's according to Sports Media Watch, and there are many ideas floating about why. Three-pointer propensity and lack of defense are the two main things observers are pointing to, and it's become more clear that players rest more often than they used to, and the regular season has been watered down in recent years. Boston Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla was asked about the declining ratings, and one would think the coach of the reigning champions would defend his game, but that was not the case, saying, I add to that, I don't watch NBA games, I'm just as much of a problem as everyone else, adding he'd rather watch something else.
Little truth juice.
Right. Now, Pablo is here because I said some things.
He did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He called them all types of snitches or some shit.
Can we just relive what
hit you with
was
that
said
boop-bop.
about me?
Yes.
Can we just recap that, Joe?
Oh, man, I'm so fucking... This guy's making me nervous. We don't recap over here. What was said was... I said, how do we feel about Pablo and his investigative journalism as far as Kawhi goes, and whether right or wrong? Well, I said, I'll just speak for me. I said, I don't know if this is corny or not.
I like it.
That's what I said. Right?
Thank you, Parks.
I like
That's
it.
what I said.
Yeah. I like journalism.
The entire room was against me on it.
No.
Huh?
I think issues on your side.
Were you with me? Because I wasn't coming from is Pablo right or wrong? I wasn't coming from that. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of investigative journalism. I am.
Except,
but I think it can still come off a way. And the Kawhi shit, even though the planter story, it was a huge story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess my question was why? I couldn't wrap my head around the why, and then they called me stupid because he's a journalist. But
yeah,
can you explain to me just why?
Yes. And by the way, like, the reason I love and I will show up and talk to people who have questions in good faith about like what I do is because I don't expect it to be obvious to everybody. The why, especially if you just know me from a sports bar on mute between the hours of 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern for 13 years. Totally fair. Why is this guy getting messy? And why is he...
Were you messy prior to?
So...
like, what's your history?
Yeah, so I used to do investigative journalism when I was an actual writer.
Got it.
At Sports Illustrated, ESPN the magazine. So I've been doing this, but television, it paid so much better.
Facts.
Joe, it paid so much better.
Here's that.
And so when I started my own show, the question was like, should I try and compete with every former athlete? Frankly, compete with like you guys, hanging out with Pop Hardell, or should I figure out like what actually distinguishes my skill set and like what I'm interested in? And so the big picture why, I do want to address that just because for me, I think today in 2025, there is the biggest gap between what rich and powerful people want you to know and what's actually happening in reality. That gap has never been bigger, and especially in sports. And so the question of like, why am I investigating Kawhi? The answer is I'm not actually investigating Kawhi. I'm investigating the richest owner in sports, Steve Ballmer, who has $150 billion, is one of the 10 richest people on the planet. And Kawhi was this really fascinating thing. And stop me if I'm like just gasbagging too much.
No, please.
But genuinely, like, it's so interesting that sports is the only thing that's growing in media. If you think about it, like in terms of like big macro pictures of like what's up and to the right, what's a green arrow? It's sports. And you know that because the owners of sports teams are richer and richer every year.
Yeah.
The Lakers we were just talking about. The Lakers were just sold at a price of $10 billion fucking dollars, right? Steve Ballmer, who buys the Clippers in 2014, he pays a record price of 2 point something. So just in that span, you get the richest people from tech especially, and now the Middle East, and now private equity, all these places with lots and lots of money. They're paying more and more, and the question is, okay, what do they want to do once they get the team? And sports is this fascinating place where you can't just buy the thing you want, right? So you could be the richest man in the world, you still got to win a title on the floor. And what's the best way to win a title on the floor in basketball? A 5-on-5 game. You have one of the best players. But there are these rules in the NBA around spending. And every NBA nerd, which I am, knows it's called the salary cap. But it means you just can't spend all the money you have. There are fair play regulations around spending, which, by the way, every billionaire will tell you if you dose them with truth serum, they fucking hate. Because it's socialist, because it's this thing that prevents them from actually spending the thing that they feel like they earned to get the thing they want the most. Like, why is Mark Zuckerberg taking MMA lessons? Why is Steve Ballmer buying a basketball team? It's because all these guys, they, especially in tech, they want to feel like not only are they one of the cool kids, and what's cooler than owning a basketball team, sitting courtside as the owner of a team, it's bossing around the jocks that you went to high school with.
They picked on you.
That stuff you in a fucking locker.
Yeah.
But so anyway, this is a long run up to saying Steve Ballmer could not spend all the money he wanted to on Kawhi Leonard. So what did he do?
Skirted the rules.
What I allege in my reporting, which I must say because I have not yet been sued or threatened with litigation by one of the 10 richest people in the world, I want to keep it that way, is that he allegedly came up with this scheme in cooperation with a totally fraudulent company to pay Kawhi Leonard a total of what was promised to be $48 million to do absolutely nothing.
I feel like before you continue, I should let you know that I'm also in support of a good scam.
This explains some things.
I feel like a good scam, you got to be creative enough to come up with. And when you broke down the Kawhi plant shit,
I just wanted to clap for them.
I thought it was so brilliant.
Why you gotta
I thought it was such a brilliant scam.
See, where I would be with you,
and they would have gotten away with it too.
where I would be with you is if the scammers were not the richest person in the world.
Yes.
If it's someone down coming up with some scamming, round
Right.
of applause.
But if I'm the richest person in the world,
everybody in the room is rich.
But if I'm the richest person in the world and I can only spend but so much, I'm not the richest person. I'm limited.
Yeah.
I would even.
So I gotta find a way to.
But I feel like if all the NBA owners are rich,
I like it.
like you say, and they are.
They are.
Then
They're all billionaires now, by definition.
Entered billionaire ballroom dancing. So, yeah, if one billionaire comes up with a creative scam that the other one didn't come up with, do we?
Or
have,
it might not be a new scam.
But
More
one,
might just got caught
but
doing
one, do we have to blow
That's a
it
fact.
up? Do we have to blow it up? Right. Two, is it something that plenty of the billionaire owners are doing? And three, which I think was my main point, if I were going to blow it up, I don't know if it would have been first on my list of NBA scams to uncover with what sports gambling and refs and bets and college. I just felt like you're great, clearly, because who the fuck was going to uncover that one?
Nobody.
But then be great in...
Show it all.
God damn it, Joe, I'm trying. Great. I'm trying. No, I appreciate that. But like, for real, like, we do 3 episodes a week. We've done investigations into the gambling stuff. And I live in the feed of my show in which I'm constantly trying to use journalism to solve mysteries and like start real shit that could also be fun. Like, that's the key thing to me is like, can I do investigative journalism at a time when it feels on its face? If I tell you I do investigative journalism, you're like already kind of bored. You're like serving me a plate not of pappardelle but of vegetables, right? Like, here's some broccoli. Like, and I, by the way, relatedly, Sports Illustrated is not the same. That's where I started off my career, writing and doing investigative journalism. ESPN, the magazine where I went next, got shut down. Real Sports and HBO, which was like the greatest news magazine on television, no longer exists.
Yeah.
And so for me, the challenge has been, how can I make it so that this shit is fun and also like nourishing? And so the question of like, why did I do it this way? It's actually because I think you have a really strong point about this scam being smart. It was both incredibly clever in ways that I'm happy to explain, and also the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
I think I need to hear the dumb part. Well, explain both to me.
So the cleverness is that Steve Ballmer, according to my reporting, right? So the reason all of this is very on the nose, and I'm going to simplify this because we did 6 parts of this, but I think episode 1 and 2 actually kind of tell the story pretty simply. Kawhi Leonard was guaranteed, according to Aspiration, this tree planting company, which has since collapsed into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And the co-founder has pled guilty to wire fraud and all that stuff.
Rich nigga shit.
By the way, like big Democrat donors in California who wanted to run for president, like this is a climate change company. We're gonna build a company where you plant trees to zero out your carbon footprint, right? And so it wasn't just the Clippers. Drake hired Aspiration to zero out his carbon footprint of his jet. Leonardo DiCaprio was doing ads. Robert Downey Jr. was doing ads. Kaya Gerber, Cindy Crawford, Orlando Bloom, just like a crazy Hollywood A-list of people who wanted to be the good guys, right? Yeah. And what happens is, quietly, secretly, in ways that no one knew, Kawhi Leonard gets signed to make $48 million per an equity deal and the salary. He gets signed to that $48 million deal, and that is more than 4 times what every A-lister on that marketing budget combined was making.
Was he planting trees?
And that's
Pablo says no. Kawhi says yes.
Maybe he was planting a lot of trees.
Kawhi does not even say yes.
Kawhi says, you don't know that I didn't do anything.
And Kawhi got equity.
Yeah.
So the thing about like, why was this? How did I figure the story out? Right?
Hell yeah.
So someone pulls my sleeve and they're like, look at Aspiration. They're the Clippers' founding sponsor of the Intuit Dome. So again, Steve Ballmer is also opening the most expensive arena in the history of American sports, the Intuit Dome. He built it in his image. He's measuring the distance between the urinals. He is like all over this. And what happens is their founding sponsor is Aspiration, this aforementioned tree planting, carbon credit thing. And again, already if you're hearing carbon credits, you're like, this is boring. But what happens is Steve Ballmer puts in $50 million into Aspiration as an investor, and then they say, simultaneously, we are signing a $300+ million deal to be the founding sponsor of the Clippers and the Intuit Dome. So already there's money just like swirling around, right? Round tripping, as it has been reported. And so the question is, well, what about this Kawhi thing? What happens is Aspiration collapses into bankruptcy. Someone says, previously, you should look into them. The bankruptcy filing comes out. What I love, and this is where I am like just a nerd, I love getting documents. I love getting tax forms. I love getting government filings.
You picked the right job.
By the way, at some point, all this shit is gonna be on crypto. And they're gonna be 0 paper. So for the time being, I got access to like publicly disclosed documents by law. Soon there's not gonna be that shit. That's a spoiler alert. It's gonna be impossible to catch soon. But in the meantime, one of the creditors listed, the 3rd highest creditor listed on the Aspiration bankruptcy form is an LLC called KL2 Aspire LLC.
Yeah, that's like making your password
Come on,
ABC 1 2 3 4. Yeah.
And so I am somebody who is like, what the fuck is KL2 Aspire LLC, and why are they owed $7 million? And I'm like, all right, so
Wait, can I jump in?
yeah.
Pablo, this is the part of the murder mystery where the guy who found out the information has to go home and wrestle with this in his sleep.
Oh yeah.
What do I do? Who do I tell? Do I expose? What are the ramifications of this? Did you go through any of that?
It took me 7 months. 7 months of that. Of wrestling, of like, if I am right about this, then one of the 10 richest men in the world has the ability to sue me into a garbage can. Like, I am fucked if I'm not right about this. And so what
Did any part of you consider going to Ballmer like, hey, I got this info, we can keep this quiet?
Great question, Mark.
So I think.
Later, I did mentally do the exercise of like, what would Steve Ballmer have paid me to never publish this?
You blew it.
And I think I probably fucked that up.
He definitely fucked that up.
Totally fucked.
Pablo,
Call me next time, please.
God.
You know how much fresh pasta I would have had?
All the pappardelle.
Just unlimited pappardelle.
You're kidding. No, you don't care about the money. You don't.
And so ultimately,
He didn't answer that.
thank you for seeing the scales of justice in my side.
Libra scales.
The Libra scales. Yeah, I'm like, this story is, I think, going to be a thing. And the reason it became a thing is because I Googled KL2 Aspire, and I was like, all right, no results. Okay, that's obvious. Okay, sure. But then I'm like, KL. Who are some KLs associated with the Clippers? And what would their jersey number be?
Yeah.
And so at some point, it becomes impossible to ignore the fact that when
Is
you
that the
pull
dumb
up,
part?
No, the dumb part is you put Aspire on the name to your LLC.
that is the even dumber
Fucking
part.
idiot.
is that he has a zillion LLCs, and for maybe sorting reasons, just like organization. If you have 30 LLCs, you're like, I gotta manage. And Uncle Dennis Robertson, who's an amazing character, who's also involved in this, is his uncle, who's not an agent but acts as his agent, who's been negotiating directly, according to reporting, with all of the billionaires in the NBA, demanding equity stakes in the team, private planes, no-show endorsement contracts, by the way. Right? That's all. It's also just a previously reported thing. What happens is, the dumbest shit of having Aspire in the LLC makes it very clear that this was an LLC started to get paid by a company called Aspiration to a guy named Kawhi Leonard with the number 2. And so at that point, I pull up the filings and I'm like, okay, yes, Kawhi Leonard's name is on the LLC, check. And then it's like, this would be an endorsement deal, presumably.
Sure.
And so what do you do with an endorsement deal?
Endorse
the product.
You say anything in public, anything. And when you Google Kawhi Leonard and endorsements and Aspiration and any combination of anything, you find 0 results. 0 results. And so as a detective in this movie that, Joe, you're producing, that I'm gonna mentally star in, I'm like, how can I prove this? Because I don't have access to everything. But in the world of marketing, I think it's actually unique that the absence of evidence can actually be the evidence.
Let me pause you there for 1 second. Because there are people, I believe you.
Thank you, Mark.
There are people who don't. Or at least who say they don't. I'm thinking about Mark Cuban in particular.
My guy.
I'm going to quote something Mark Cuban said. He said, the big headline he said is, the one thing you don't have is anything between Sandberg and the Clippers showing collusion. Point number 1. Point number 2, which is the bigger point, is he's arguing that, yeah, the guy was a scammer. Sandberg was a scammer. He pled guilty. Clippers got scammed too. Lots of people sign people up for shit and it doesn't work out. And tens or 20s of millions of dollars isn't a lot of money to a billionaire. Also, lots of the Sixers, I use the Sixers, my hometown team. You know, they sign players. Sometimes guys get deals with local car dealerships. They get deals with local companies.
Yeah.
It's an incentive to come. It's not outside the boundaries of the rules. Why should we believe that the Clippers weren't scammed just as much as everybody else?
So Mark Cuban came to my studio and we like Frost Nixoned it, like debated each other, like stared into each other's eyes and like argued for hours. We did that twice actually, once over Zoom, once in person. And so again, part of my desire to like, pressure test my logic, please, someone anywhere. Because the Clippers, by the way, Steve Ballmer didn't.
Right.
He did not dare to, but Cuban did. And so I want to.
Or he didn't want to dignify it, in fairness.
But
which is what I would have thought.
But he did do something very fascinating, which is the day after my episode came out, he fucking flew to Bristol, Connecticut, and sat down for an interview with Ramona Shelburne.
That looked crazy.
Which, by the way, I don't know. I'm proud of a couple of things I've done in my career, but making a guy that rich go to Connecticut to do an interview, I'm just like, that's just objectively funny to me.
Yeah, it is.
But this is actually a great question because it gets back to the thing I was trying to set up, which is this is both the smartest shit and the dumbest shit, right? The dumbest shit because absence of evidence, he didn't do a single thing. No trees, no tweets, no likes, nothing. If he'd done a single thing,
then you get to shut up, right?
I can't.
If he plants something,
I can't claim that this is a no-show endorsement deal.
But we've all had jobs where we've gotten paid and didn't do shit.
Now, I dare say though that when it comes to why you got that job, there would be a follow-up question.
Fair.
And so this brings us to the smartest shit, right? Yeah. So the smartest shit about this is that Steve Ballmer in 2015, and Mark Cuban, it's funny, forgot about this part when I asked him about this in our sit-down interview. I said, Mark, do you remember what happened in 2015 with Steve Ballmer? Because he was actually punished by the NBA for salary cap circumvention. Because, remember that thing with DeAndre Jordan in the chair?
Yes.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan, you know who was trying to sign him?
Dallas.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
He forgot this, apparently. What happened was, Steve Ballmer was fined $250,000 because what happened in the pitch meeting for DeAndre Jordan was they made a side deal with a team sponsor, Lexus. That was not okay because per the rules of the NBA, and again, I won't bore you with the CBA regulations, but you can't orchestrate a side deal to entice someone to sign with you. But there are ways to thread the needle of getting away with it. And so I say all of that to say, Steve Ballmer, when it comes to 2019 when he signs Kawhi Leonard, and then 2021 when we get to the extension, which is when aspiration happens, what he is doing that's very smart is anticipating what happens if I get investigated. He got fucked in 2015 by the sloppiness of the plan. Come this deal,
So you learn from your mistakes and
the number one thing you would do if you've been previously punished and are at all smart and trying to get away with something is not write it down on a piece of paper that says, I'm circumventing the cap, love Steve, right? And so when there is discovery, when there's all this stuff happening, there's just not a smoking gun, as it's called. But let me now present to you some things that are curious. So Kawhi Leonard gets signed to this no-show deal, does nothing. Steve Ballmer simultaneously is investing $50 million in. Kawhi Leonard gets $48 million out, according to the terms of these agreements. The company begins to collapse. The company is shit. The company is falling apart. They're spending. They are a total mess. They go into default. Their independent auditor resigns. They have lawsuits or probes, coming from the SEC and from FINRA. And those are disclosed to anybody who wants to make more investments because that's by law. March 2023, those disclosures are made, and at the same price as if the company has remained exactly the way it was when Steve Ballmer put in $50 million, Steve Ballmer puts in another 10. And the question is, why would you do that while this company is collapsing? And my theory in my reporting is, as borne out by the sources I've talked to, and by the way, there are 7 sources that have said to me directly, we were told as Aspiration employees that this was for salary cap circumvention.
Oh, shit.
So that's actually the answer. But like, I want to actually just, maybe you don't believe them. And so I want to walk you through the logic, right?
Sure.
That's wild. I'm sorry.
For real. So that is said to me. And the question of like, why is he keeping on supporting, investing as if this is a real company? It's because, according to my reporting, Joe Sandberg, who is the guy who's pled guilty to wire fraud, who is going to jail, he had something on Steve Ballmer. And that something was this Kawhi Leonard secret deal. So why was it smart? Why was it stupid? It was smart because if this company, and the goal was to go public via SPAC, so which is all to say, which is a whole other thing that's vegetables, but it's just like they were gonna go public. And if they ever did, none of this would have been discovered because the company would have been real. The documents would have never been released. There would have been no bankruptcy filings. But because the company collapsed, Steve Ballmer at some point realized, oh my God, my smart plan is also a stupid plan because the guy I trusted to deceive the NBA is also scamming me. And so it is both.
Gotcha.
It is, I have been scammed, and Steve Ballmer says that, and you listen to him and you believe him because I think, for my reporting, he was. But he was also in a again, the CBA, the salary cap shit, that's not law. That's NBA rules.
Right.
Right? You don't go to jail for violating the salary cap.
Right.
But you can lose your team.
Absolutely. And that's why this pressure point of like, I love the NBA more than anything. I just bought this team. I love it so much. I'm trying to get Kawhi Leonard to beat the Lakers, to win titles. But I did it in a way that I can't ever let the NBA discover. That's why he needed to keep this hidden. That's why he was investing in the company. And as a total side note, and I apologize for monopolizing the microphone.
No, you're good.
That's the job.
But the next thing the thing that happened, I didn't even like do this right. March 2023, Steve Ballmer puts another $10 million if nothing is wrong with the company. In December of 2022, before that, right? The thing about Aspiration was they struggled to pay Kawhi Leonard, which is crazy to me. But they were so dysfunctional as a company that payments were late. 4 quarterly payments, $1.75 million each. The first one was like 2 days late. The second one, right, which is due in September, doesn't get paid in September, doesn't get paid in October, doesn't get paid in November. But suddenly in December, as this company is like bleeding and hemorrhaging money, what happens is that Aspiration gets an investment from somebody who's never invested in the company before. Somebody who is given the same exact disclosures that I described to you that Steve Ballmer got in March 2023 about how fucked the company is.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, by the way, this company, just as a general concern, is actually a terrible investment. So what happens? An LLC puts in $1.99 million. And the next week, Kawhi Leonard gets paid 1.75. And you might ask, who would this first-time investor be into this
Don't say it.
crazy
Don't fucking
company?
say it.
The Los Angeles Clippers have one limited partner, one co-owner. It is Steve Ballmer and then one guy. That guy, his name is Dennis Wong. Dennis Wong is a couple of things. He is Steve Ballmer's classmate at Harvard.
Okay.
He is also the one co-owner of the Clippers. And so we have the bank statements, we have the forms, we have the signed purchase agreement in that C5 round for like the in and out. And so I'm just saying, like, there are lots of ways you can dismiss the human sources that I have. The 7 anonymous employees who, by the way, have also been interviewed by the federal government about all of this, who have like, you know, it's a real story. But the in and out documents, I'm just like, I would like someone to tell me what I'm missing.
Dude, this feels like an episode of Scooby-Doo where they lift the mask off.
For sure.
Yeah. He's just standing there
Would have
like,
got away with it. Like,
yeah, this is...
It does. And I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, you get it a little bit. But I don't know if my question is answered. In Pablo's perfect world, with uncovering all of this, what should happen?
All I can
That's a
do
good question.
is hope. So right now, I'll tell you what's actually happening, what I would like to see happen. So what's actually happening is that the NBA has hired a law firm, Wachtell Lipton, which is one of like the biggest, most legit, you know, white-collar law firms in America.
Okay.
And they were the ones that investigated Donald Sterling, who had to sell the team, and Robert Sarver, owner of the Suns, who had to sell the team. And so there is this like real effort, like, we're going to open an investigation, which is what my reporting did, and so I'm grateful that that has happened. And they're going to pay, or rather, they're going to. It's funny how these investigations get paid, but like, because the owners ultimately have to, they get billed for it. It's funny, the NBA, like, Adam Silver works for the billionaire owners, right?
Right.
But he's also their boss. He's also the guy punishing them, and so that's where it gets to be where. What I have to do is make it so that my reporting is so unimpeachable and frankly known to people who don't give a fuck about investigative reporting that you can't just bury this. Because every league, every sport, every rich person, all they want to do is shrink the PR crisis.
Yeah.
Right? Something bad happens, I want it to go away. Of course, that's what the NBA wants to do.
Is your goal?
Mona, girl.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm tripping. I was comfortable. Is it a goal of yours to like change what's going on when you shed light to these things?
It's sometimes I think it is some days, but mostly I just think that sports is this current desert of anything resembling accountability for people who have tons of money. And there are stories that by the way, this is the more fun answer that I fully believe is that and you guys, I'm sure, all have shit coming into your group chats and texts where you're like, yo, but you'd never go with that because that's irresponsible or that's a rumor or whatever else.
Of course.
But for me, what I'm realizing is that my job is not to do PR for owners or the league. My job does not require access because I made this weird Scooby-Doo van where I do mystery solving things. My job is actually to tell the best story that most closely resembles the things that people know that they're not saying to like the fans and the audience, the people who pay money to go to these games, who support the products.
I got a question for you. How do you decide what to report on versus not to? Like if you get some information, like you said, check out that company. What makes you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to report on this? Because I'm pretty sure you've gotten things where you're like, all right, I'm going to leave that one alone.
Absolutely.
So what's the deciding factor in that?
So I sometimes think about like what is journalism, because everybody interviews people, everybody talks, and it's not all journalism. So what does it mean? I think journalism means for your actual boss to be the public interest, meaning there's a real value to knowing this stuff that changes your perception of something that has real stakes. In sports, obviously, like, let's be honest though, like sports is like, sports is the cheese I want to melt on your vegetables. It's the cheese on the broccoli. Like, I'm not naive about that. I was debating sports on ESPN for a dozen years. Like, I love sports.
Right.
I know why it's fun. It's the toy department, right? That's what it's always been called. But for me, there are some ways for seemingly stupid stories to be important. And so, for instance, another story that I think answers the question in terms of like, what else do I do? One of the craziest stories I reported was about this secret arbitration ruling that happened between the NFL and the NFLPA, the players union. And what is that story, very briefly, because it's going to sound like vegetables on the front end? It's that for the first time, the players union and the NFL again being this collection of billionaire owners, the most powerful people in sports, they agreed to suppress the results of an arbitration hearing that happened in which the union went and took legal action against the league because they were suppressing, allegedly, guaranteed contracts.
Right.
What happened? Remember when Deshaun Watson got that fully guaranteed contract?
Yeah,
that was crazy. Still like the worst contract in like NFL history. What happened was all these other owners, according to this hearing, colluded, allegedly, to make sure that never happened again. They would never give another quarterback a fully guaranteed contract. So what happened? That same summer, who was up?
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. Guess who got 0 fully guaranteed contracts? It's never happened again. And part of the reason why was in this 61-page, I love documents, the 61-page document, right? I got the PDF, the hearing, everyone got cell phones searched, they got text messages from owners, we got GMs, agents, players, all interviewed. And what happened was the NFLPA and the NFL agreed to bury this. In this ruling, you discover Lamar Jackson. Remember when Lamar wanted a fully guaranteed contract from the Ravens? Didn't get it. You know how much interest he got? None.
Zero. Yeah.
And in the ruling, you see how it happened. And it's just like, okay, so what happened? Why did they suppress it? It's because it turns out there was a regime at the NFLPA that wanted to do things differently.
Here's the thing, though.
I hate when that happens.
No, by the way, that just briefly, the executive director of the union at the time, Lloyd Howell, and the chief strategy officer, this guy, J.C. Treader, as a result of this news cycle that started, they had to both resign.
Yeah. See, in the example you gave right there, I say, okay, there's a clear person who's harmed. Because all these quarterbacks